Election 2020, it is finally in the history books, and the biggest talk that you're going to hear from the pundits and the media elite is this huge amount of voter turnout. The voter turnout is all the rage. You'll hear people talking about that because guess what? It was the largest turnout in U.S. history. Over 150 million people voted, but guess what? That means over 100 million people did not vote that could have voted. And so that's what we're going to look at today on the True Middle. We're going to discuss the 5 reasons why people do not vote. Stay tuned here on the True Middle. Hey, how we doing, everybody? Thank you for tuning in. You are watching The True Middle. I am your host, Paul, and on this channel, this is where we look at politics, faith, business, entrepreneurship, and social issues, and we look at them from a real perspective from those of us that are in the true middle of America, the real Americans. So today, we're going to dive into this election. It's all over. We can kind of move past, take a look at it, and start really getting into the real issues that we all want to talk about that make a difference in our lives. But the thing that you're going to hear in the media is this large turnout. It was the largest turnout in U.S. history, and all the media pundits and all the media leaders are all excited about it, saying that he did such a great job getting out to vote because over 150 million people voted. And that's great. It's good to have a large turnout, but guess what? There's about 350 million people or so in the U.S., and so that means there's a good portion of people that did not vote. So we're really going to dive into this, why this is such a huge problem and why it poses a problem in our democracy going forward. For those of us here in the true middle that really want the government to speak on our behalf, we need to make sure that we get out there and vote. So guys, welcome into the true middle. Let's dive into this today. We're really going to get into some reasons why people do not vote. But let's just, first of all, let's take a look at some results. So you see here, these are the results. 51% of the vote right now went to Joe Biden. About 48% went to Donald Trump. So obviously, you can see that it was a very close election. There's obviously a deeply divided country. Great turnout in respect to both of those candidates. They did a great job. It was a really, really tough campaign. A lot of people came out. Ultimately, the Democrats won, Joe Biden, so we have our Democratic blue background going on today. Sorry, guys, for those of you that wanted to vote Republican. We're going to celebrate the Democrats today. They won the election. We're going to feature the blue in the background today. So just having a little bit of fun with it. You know what I mean? So what really is important, though, is not so much the percentage of votes, right? Because there's still about, 2% of people that voted for other candidates. They voted for Joe Jorgensen, Howie Hawkins. I don't even know who Howie Hawkins is, but a small percentage of people voted for him, and a very small percentage of people voted for other candidates, which may be just, write-in votes or whatever. But the big number that we're really going to look at is the totals. 75 million people voted for Biden this year, about 71 million, we'll call it, for Donald Trump. Hey, that puts us at about 145, 146 million. Now all the votes are in. They're still going to tally some more. So let's just say on the conservative side, round it up, 150 million people voted. Clearly, that is the largest turnout in U.S. history. Let me move my screen down a little bit so you guys might be able to see some of these other numbers here at the bottom as we get into it. Obama, 2008. About 69.5 million people voted for him. 2012, about 66 million people. You can see the last election in 2016, Clinton had about 66 million, Trump about 63 million. So altogether, you're looking at about 130 million people voted in 2016 versus the 150 million that voted this year's election. So clearly, there was a difference. It was a larger turnout this year for the votes. And so great job. I mean, we did multiply those numbers, but here's the problem, right? There's still a lot of people that did not vote. So on today's episode, we're going to talk about the top 5 reasons why people don't vote. And number 1 is because they're just not legally eligible. Let's face it, guys, out of the 350 million people, that are in the U.S., there are some that just aren't legally eligible. So in order to be eligible to vote, you have to meet certain requirements, right? First of all, you have to be a U.S. citizen. So there's a lot of people that just aren't U.S. citizens. They may be permanent residents, but they're not qualified or legally able to vote. You also have to be 18 years old to vote. There's a lot of people in the U.S. that aren't 18 years old, right? There's also in certain states, certain felons can't vote. There's also some other state requirements that make you eligible to vote. You had to live in a state for a certain amount of time. So altogether, let's call that as roughly about 100 million people that aren't legally eligible to vote. So 150 million voted, 100 million are not able to vote. Minus that from the 350 million, that still leaves about 100 million people that did not vote that are legally eligible. So why wouldn't they vote? Well, let's turn into the next issue. They just don't know how. They don't know how to vote. It's crazy because you would think something like voting is very simple. You just go in, you cast your vote, and that's it. But no, we have to make it difficult. There's voter registration requirements. And what even makes it more confusing is that these voter registration requirements can vary from state to state. Certain states require you to register different ways. Now, great thing is we've made a lot of progress on this, right? Over the years, there's been a lot of push in order to educate people to get them to register themselves to vote. A lot of people are becoming more knowledgeable about this particular topic on registering to vote, but there's still a lot of people that don't know how to do this, especially people that are going to vote for the first time. If they've been out of it for a long period of time and this is now getting into it, there isn't an easy way unless you really stay in tune to understand how you have to register to vote. So there's a large percentage of people that don't know how to vote, right? There is a large percentage of people that just think that the government does not represent us. And this is a problem because the government will never represent us if we aren't the ones that go out there and vote and make our voices heard. The government is always going to be representative of the people that speak up. So they're going to cater towards the people that vote for them. Plain and simple. So if it's only the richest 10% of Americans that are going out to vote, only the most powerful people that are going out to vote, guess who the government is going to represent? They are going to represent those people. So this is kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy that if we don't go out, we don't get involved, and we don't vote, then there's no reason or no benefit for the government to represent us because at the end of the day, they want to win their votes. And if we're not voting, they don't care. They're not going to represent us. So there's a lot of people that just don't vote because historically they've looked at the government as something that doesn't represent us. They don't feel as though they're represented. And that's true. There's also a lack of trust. That's the fourth reason that people don't vote. Lack of trust. We just don't trust politicians. Politicians right now are all-time low in their approval ratings. They think that they lie. And guess what? A lot of politicians are going to say one thing in order to get your vote. But then when they get in the office, they see that they're taking a turn. They're not fulfilling on their promises. They say they're not going to raise taxes. They get in there, they raise taxes. They say they're going to solve this problem. They get in there, they don't solve the problem. And part of it is because of the way that the government is structured, that if you're voting, especially our president, is limited to their abilities. They have to wait for the Congress to approve certain things. But there is a lack of trust. Let's face it. They're beholden to the people that contribute money into their campaigns. Campaigns are very expensive to run. And so if they're given money, they're going to vote, and they're going to make policies that benefit the people that will continue to fund their campaigns. Because guess what? It takes a lot of money to run campaigns. And so they're going to, follow the money, always follow the money. So there is a huge lack of trust when it comes to our government. And last reason why people don't vote is just because there's too much partisanship. Yes, guys, too much partisanship. And then this has been a perfect example of it. We've seen it in the government today, with the stimulus checks and the stimulus plan that they've been trying to pass, back and forth between the Democrats and the Republicans. They're always going to try to jockey because the Republicans have power. They don't want to give in to the demands of the Democrats. And so we see this from the outside, and we can see that these people aren't really trying to negotiate to get things done. They're just trying to jockey for what's best for, guess what? The people that they're beholden to, the people that voted, and the people that are sending them money to fund their campaigns. And we see this partisanship going back and forth. Two parties constantly fighting with one another with competing ideals, competing interests. And so nothing ever gets done. But guess what, guys? We will never be able to change this unless we actually get involved. So this year has passed. We have 4 more years before there's another presidential election. Let's get involved, guys. In 2 years, we're going to have an election where we're going to have to vote for representatives and senators. And that's where we can really make a difference, right? It's all up to all of us to kind of get involved, to educate ourselves. We're making strides. We truly are. I have to give it credit. We're making a lot of strides. A lot of celebrities, a lot of high-profile people have really stepped up this year to try to get this information out so people are aware and educated about how to register to vote, how they can vote, why it's important to vote. They've tried to make it easier for people to vote in a lot of situations, and there's a lot of partisan debate over that, right? About people trying to make it harder, other people trying to make it easier for people to vote. So there's still a lot of things that we need to work out. But ultimately, at the end of the day, when only 2/3 of the population that are eligible to vote are voting, guess what's going to happen? The government is going to be representative of those people that vote. They're not going to represent those of us that don't. And guess what? Out of that 2/3, most of that are you and I, people that are in the middle class. Now, I'm not saying you didn't vote. I'm sure you voted. I voted. No, but it's people just like us in the middle class that may be tied up with work and worried about family and worried about, getting up every day, going to make money, to survive, to pay their bills, just kind of drudging through, going through life, right? And they think, well, since the government doesn't represent us, since they're going to just go ahead and do what they want to do and they're going to cater to the people that are giving them the money, I don't have millions of dollars to give. I'm just not even going to vote because I'm wasting my time. They're lying to me anyway. I don't know who to trust. I'm tuning out. Guys, you need to tune in. You need to vote. So we're going to push an effort. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Do you agree with these top 5 reasons why people don't vote? Maybe you're one of those. Chime in if you are. I'd love to hear from you. I talk to a lot of people, different business owners, different people in the true middle. And this is something that we need to iron out. We need to discuss this as we go on and get prepared for our next election, because they do become more consequential as they go on. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Guys, if you enjoyed this video, make sure you go down, make sure you subscribe to this channel. Make sure you hit that notification bell so you're notified every time I bring you new content. And if you really like what you hear on The True Middle, go and check us out on the podcast. Because we have a lot of great things coming on a podcast where we're going to be interviewing people here, real people, true Americans, the 90% of us that are grinding through every day. We're going to give you helpful tips. We're going to look at real problems and real solutions and look at it from a real perspective. I thank you all for tuning in today. Make sure you catch up to us here on The True Middle.